Hello everyone, I hope you're having a great week. This video is going to go over chapter 3, writing styles for professional media. When I'm talking about media style, a lot of times what we are referring to is the formats that you are meant to follow when writing for particular media. Writing styles are important because they give you a little bit of guidance on what your writing should really look like once it's complete and help you know how to get there. One of the key writing styles for all types of media is accuracy. Media today has a large problem with misinformation and inaccurate information. Misinformation can be information that is either deliberately wrong, that tries to hurt people through the lack of truth, or it can be unintentional uh, misinformation or disinformation where you present things in the wrong way, but you don't really mean to do so. And so we as media professionals need to hold our writing to a high standard of accuracy. This means always being truthful and always being honest. And this is really a key component of being a media professional because there are so many times when it would be easy for you to make up a quote, make up a statistic, but without that truth and honesty, your audience cannot trust you. And so we have to remain truthful and honest in all of our work. It's also important that you fact check because not all of your sources of information are going to write with truth and honesty. So it's up to you as a journalist to check the information that you're being given against other credible sources of information. So you're always going to want to double check a fact that you receive from someone with at least 2 other sources to try to confirm it. It's important to recognize the interrelationship between credibility, audience, business, and accuracy. Without credibility, you won't gain a large audience. Without a large audience, you're going to fall in business and economics. And accuracy plays a large part in building all of these facets. So you want to make sure that your accurate writing lends itself to the credibility of your organization. There are 2 key ways that journalists in particular, but primarily all media writers, need to think about in terms of accuracy. The first is objectivity, which refers to a lack of bias, judgment, or prejudice in reporting, interview, and writing. This is when journalists base the news only on facts. It's taking out your personal opinions or your personal emotions in order to write objectively. One way that you can do this is through multiple sources and attributing the information that you get to those sources so that you are never the source of an emotion or an opinion. Those are always attributed or quoted from a particular source that you're using. Now, objectivity is also important in public relations and advertising, even when the material itself may not be objective, because you may not always agree with your employer or hold the same belief as your employer or your client does. However, you need to remain objective and really achieve the viewpoint of the client when you're writing for them. Of course, you never want to cross ethical and moral boundaries where you don't feel comfortable with the opinions you're trying to express for your client or your business, but there may be times when you need to write outside of your own voice, and which comes across as objective. In addition, balance is really important in media writing. We're not trying to take sides unless we're writing a particular opinion piece. And you're really not trying to persuade people either. So you're wanting to present all sides so that your audience can decide for themselves what is really the best. And when you're presenting all sides, it's important to remember that most issues don't just have 2 sides. There are lots of different perspectives that we need to think about and include. The media tends to present things in dichotomous sides, meaning that there are only 2 sides that are presented and they're pitted against each other for conflict news values. And yet that's not always true. A lot of times there is gray area where you might believe something in between those 2 polarizing viewpoints. So It's important to present all sides as fairly as possible, and also to present your emphasis equally. So if you give a lot of airtime to one voice, let's say you give, a 45-second soundbite for one side, but then only give the other side 10 seconds, then you're not really being balanced because you're giving more emphasis to one side than the other. Another writing style that is important for media is being brief. It's being concise in your writing. So we as media writers need to convey key ideas in the fewest words possible. And this is because we, even in the digital age, need to have space for publication. We need to keep our airtime brief so we can get as much information in our 30-minute newscast as possible. And we need to hold the audience's attention. Remember, most people pay attention to a media product for less than 30 seconds. And so the more brief you are able to convey your ideas, the more concisely you're able to do that, the more likely your audience is to actually pay attention to you. Sentences should only be 12 to 16 words maximum. You're gonna wanna convey one thought per sentence. So all of the compound sentences that you're used to writing for English or for academic writing, you really wanna do away with. We're trying to make it very clear, very concise, so that you're writing for the ear. When you're writing for media, you should always take your script and read it out loud. Even if you're writing for a print publication, this is really important because when we read copy as media consumers, a lot of times we're hearing what it says as we're reading in our minds. So if you write for the ear, it's going to help you make more sense in your copy. You also want to write for the eye, which means making sure that the layout of your piece is easy to understand and you don't have big block text that would prevent someone from wanting to read it. Being brief also means carefully proofing your pieces and trying to eliminate unnecessary words or anything that would be confusing. So make sure that after you finish writing that you edit, edit, edit. Part of being concise is also being clear with your words. And this really involves a large thought process for media writers. You want to think first and write second. This is why we have strategies and planning, such as using our situation, audience message, or those FAJA points that we learned about earlier this week. Once you think about what your story should be, the writing should come naturally and create a more efficient workflow for you as a writer. But clarity is really key because we get so much information day to day from media outlets as consumers that things that are not clear, we will not stop to think about and try to understand. We'll just move on without really consuming it. And so this is why we suggest writing at a second grade level for broadcasting or an 8th grade level for print. I typically try to think about if I was writing to my 10 or 11-year-old niece, what would she understand? And that's really kind of the audience that I'm looking for. And this also involves being clear in your word choice, trying to use very conversational language as opposed to very academic or smart sounding words. You want to talk like people talk in their everyday lives. This brings us to precision in word choice. Words have a lot of different meanings, and when used incorrectly, the mistakes mark you as an amateur. They can be funny, but more often than not, they're going to irritate your audience because they're recognizing your errors and questioning your accuracy and credibility in your writing. So precise media writing is extremely important for media writers because it just marks you right away as someone who is not professional. You can see in all of these photos, some of them are pretty funny, but would you really want to use this business or listen to this media product? Probably not. They're funny, but you wouldn't trust them as a source of credibility. That's why precise language is really important for media writers. Media writing style needs to combine all of these things as you consider what facts, opinions, meaning, and context there is in your story. Media writers have to pay attention to detail, and we have to avoid mental laziness within our writing. Mental laziness is just when you try to write something and just put it down on the paper and say, that's good enough. Media writing involves writing and then editing, writing again, until you get a very clear, concise, accurate, and precise media product. So writing is thinking. To write well is to think clearly. That's why it's so hard. If writing for the media was just about writing something down that happened, everyone could do it. And yet being a media professional is so difficult because it is hard work to make simple writing. So you're really going to have to practice, practice, practice to get proper media writing style down. One important note that your textbook goes over that I want to re-emphasize is the importance of plagiarism in media writing. These are three people, three journalists who were caught plagiarizing within their work. Two of them worked for the Times, one of them at BuzzFeed, but their careers were over the second that they were accused of plagiarism, and all of them were actually caught plagiarizing at various points in their career. You will not work again for a media outlet if you are caught plagiarizing at one outlet. You may go on to be a successful person, but it is unlikely that you will ever work for media again if you plagiarize. So don't give yourself this mental shortcut of using someone's words that are not your own. You are all creative. You are all brilliant. You just have to trust yourself that you are a good enough media writer to not steal other people's things. Plagiarism is a very, very serious thing in our industry, so don't do it within your academic career, and certainly don't do it within your professional one. So now that we've gone over the main points of writing style for media professionals, make sure that you take your current events quiz. I also want you to discuss the importance of accuracy in the digital age in your discussion post for today. You will have your first writing assignment, which will be to practice using Sam and Faja to write a pitch for a product. You can get more information about that assignment in today's module. That will be due next Thursday, September 17th. And finally, you'll go over in your AP style book, reading first, the sections on abbreviations and titles. You'll then watch a video and practice it in homework. Hope you guys are having a great week, and I will see you in the abbreviation and titles video.